It seems that we've been waiting for the housing market to crash all year, if not for the past several years. But is it actually going to? Well, to help answer that question in this real estate market update for October 2023, I'm going to show you what the latest data is telling us and share what the experts are forecasting home prices to do over the next several years. And then I invite you to stick around to the end as I'm going to share with you an article that just came out in Forbes magazine all about the Dallas housing market and whether they think it's going to crash. So there's absolutely a ton to cover in this month's market report. So let's jump into it right now. Hi, this is Andrew with the Andrew Smith team, eXp Realty here in Frisco, Texas. And, there seems to be an awful lot of confusion circulating about the housing market, and for good reason. The headlines have been all over the place. The information that we're all getting is very conflicting. I talk to buyers and sellers each and every day, and many of them just don't know what to do. And that may be you. That may be something that you're facing as well. And you've got questions about where all this is heading and what the next step is. So actually, before we get going here, I'd like to ask you in the comments below, let me know, where do you think the housing market is heading? And if you're someone that put their plans to buy or sell on hold, why? What is it that you're waiting for? What's holding you back right now? Is it mortgage rates? Is it just general affordability? Is it home prices? Is it all of the above? Let me know. I'd love for you to share that information in the comments. So as we get going today, the talk of a housing market crash in today's update or this month's update is going to be all about whether or not this market's going to crash based upon the latest data. And we're really going to dive deep into home prices and what is actually going on, what has been going on, and what is going to happen going forward. I mean, let's face it, we started this year with all kinds of forecasts on how much home prices were going to fall in 2023. And as you've probably gathered, if you've been paying attention, that hasn't happened. Okay, talk of a crash has been with us for quite a while. Right when the pandemic hit and the economy was shutting down, that was going to lead to a crash. Didn't happen. Now there's been more talk again lately that it's going to be foreclosures that lead to a crash. Earlier this year, it's Airbnb market is going to collapse and cause the housing market to crash. But none of those have actually come to fruition. So why is that? What has actually happened? And I think just to lay some groundwork as we start is, understand that in order for the housing market to crash, you need two things to happen. You need demand to fall and supply to increase. You need those things to happen in conjunction with one another to get substantial downward pressure on housing. And we haven't actually seen that. Now, the Fed has tried their best, right? I did a video about this just recently, which I'm going to put a card in the corner right there for you to see. And, as they raised rates, the expectation was that they would crush demand, which they did. Home sales are way down, without a doubt. But they also thought that supply would continue to increase, the other half of the equation, but it hasn't. So the question is, why? Well, there's a couple of really good reasons for that. I'm going to share my screen with you now and kind of go through those with you. This came out from Fannie Mae in their housing and mortgage market outlook. And it said, overall, it appears as though the reduction in supply has outweighed the decrease in demand. Thus, home prices have started to increase even though sales have fallen. Now, that's the exact opposite of what everybody was forecasting. So why is it that supply has fallen? Well, ironically enough, it has a lot to do with the mortgage rates that crushed demand in the first place. Here's why. Right here, what we're looking at is this is showing that nearly 71% of all mortgage rates in the country are less than 4%. So, 26% of all homes with a mortgage have a mortgage rate less than 3%, 44.7 between 3 and 4%. So the likelihood, if you're somebody that has a mortgage that low and mortgage rates are now running 7.5, Why would you sell? And the answer is you wouldn't. One of two things happened. Either due to the amount of equity that's been gained in homes over the past few years, homeowners simply kept their home, turned it into a rental, pulled equity out to buy a new home, or they decided they're not moving at all, in which case they just stayed put. Maybe they did some remodeling. Maybe they didn't do anything, is they're just going to do a wait and see. How big of an impact has this had? Well, it's had a big impact. So what has been going on recently in a survey that was done by FHFA is if somebody has a mortgage rate less than 3%, they found that they're just flat out not selling. The next, the big section of the pie here at the bottom show that if someone currently has a rate between 3 and 4%, they're probably not selling. If they have a rate between 4 and 5%, they're going to have to think really hard before selling. And then if you have a rate between 5 and 6, they'd probably sell. 6 or more, they would definitely sell. But when you look at this chart, it goes to show that there's not many people that would be inclined to sell, which explains why supply has dropped so dramatically. And let me show you now what exactly I mean by that. Okay, what we're looking at here is from the actual North Texas MLS system, and this is showing the number of homes for sale. So the inventory of homes for sale. We're looking back over 3 years. Here's where we are currently. As you can see, inventory peaked in August and it has started to decline, which is normal. This is a very normal seasonal pattern. And you can see right here, Frisco right now has 21.3% fewer homes for sale than we did last year. Again, this is only going back 3 years. When you look back into 2020, you can see we had substantially more homes on the market in 2020 than we do right now. If we went back into 2018, 2019, that number is even higher. This time of year, it would not be uncommon to have over 1,000 homes for sale. So you can see how dramatically the number of homes on the market has actually fallen. As a result, that is what has kept sales prices high, as I mentioned right at the beginning. So taking a look at that. This right here is looking at the sales prices, median sales prices in Frisco for all construction types over the past 3 years. Now, for those of you wondering when prices are going to fall, they actually already did. Okay, so our prices peaked in April of 2022. That was our highest median price. And this is when mortgage rates really started to climb. And look what happened. Prices tumbled. They fell between April all the way down to August. They bottomed out a little bit here in October. And you may recall, if you were here last year, that the builders had a lot of contract cancellations going on. Okay, people were not sure where everything was going and they were canceling contracts like crazy. And the home builders and the resale sellers that were on the market really had to get aggressive in the incentives that they were offering to get people to go back under contract. And they did. What they did actually worked. And the new home builders between November and December sold a great deal of homes. There was all kinds of sales that took place, and many of them had record Decembers, which actually caused prices to start to come back up at the end of the year. You see that we had a drop here in February. That was actually mainly due to resale homes. Those are the ones that had significant price decreases in October and November. Those are the ones that closed here. What the builders were selling typically closed in January, or they didn't close again until March, just where they were in the construction time frame. But since May, our prices have actually been going up again. So you can see here in September, we had a median price in September of $700,000. That's 9% ahead of where we were last year. Now, before you start thinking, oh my gosh, prices are soaring again, we're going up 9-10% a year. No, we're not. I mean, look here, you can see that this curve up is fairly gradual compared to what we saw, in 2021 and 2022. This 9% increase is more a reflection of how quickly prices were decreasing in the late summer, early fall last year than in what they're actually increasing this year. And that's an important point, which I'll get to in a minute, with regards to where home prices here in Frisco are likely heading. So, I know going through these charts and graphs is kind of monotonous. And if you're still with me, I thank you for that. I want to bring you the data that you need to make the best decision for you and your family. The data is the data. I'll share an opinion, as and when it's needed, but I'm not trying to convince you of anything. Just provide you the data that you need to make the best decision for you and your family. And if you'd like to get more information just like this, I invite you to hit that little thumbs up and, it's subscribe to my channel. I put new videos out like this once or twice a week on the local community and exactly what is going on in our local market. Now, one other thing, this is all great where I can see where prices have been, but where are they going? That's what's most important. And that's what a lot of people want to know. So I'm going to show you another graph here. And what this is showing us is where homes are actually selling. So this is the percent of original list price that homes are selling for. Now you can see back in 2022, when the frenzy was reaching its peak, 109% of list price, so nearly 10% over was the median sales price. That dropped all the way back down. We came up again this spring. You saw the prices started increasing again right around May. And currently, we're at 98% of list price, original list price, of where homes are selling for. So as of right now, we're looking at a discount of no more than 2% of the original list price. Why is that important? Well, let me show you. This right here is from my weekly market report. So if you'd like to receive a copy of this market report, in the description below, I've got a link to it. This is for Frisco, what we're looking at, but you can actually search the data for Frisco, Prosper, Salina, McKinney, Plano, wherever you want, any zip code, city in actually the entire country, you can get this exact same data. Now, this is the flip side. Rather than looking at the sales prices, this chart is graphing where list prices are. So you can see there's two different lines here. The dotted line is looking at it from a 7-day look back period. It's a 7-day average. This data is updated each and every week. So the 7-day average is way more volatile. The darker blue line, the solid line, is showing us a 90-day average. But the point I want to make here is that if you look at the last 2 weeks, we're basically unchanged. Prices have basically held still right at around 700,000 with regards to the new list price, the median list price of where the new listings are. Why is that important? Well, if you go back to the chart I just showed you, homes are selling, the median home is selling for 98% of its original list price. So if you take a $700,000 house, that's a sales price somewhere between $685 and $700 based on the latest numbers. It's important to keep in mind now too that these homes right here that are being listed now in October, they're not going to go under contract based on current days on market until later in October or even November, which means this is going to be fairly representative, fairly close to what our sales prices are going to be in December and January. And every January, the market here then resets. We start to see prices climb again. Will that happen this year? I don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty out there, but again, I can't read the tea leaves. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but I'm just going off what this is telling us right now. If I go back to this chart and look at sales prices one more time, and I go back, I just look at this year, look at where we started in the median sales price in January of, 2023. January was right here. January was right at 700,000. Where were prices currently? 700,000, the list prices. So it looks as though as far as year over year price appreciation, we're going to end fairly flat, right? Prices here in Frisco are going to end the year relatively flat based upon what data is telling us currently. Now, do we know for sure that that's going to happen? No, of course we don't. But it gives us a good indication of where things are. So if you're out there right now thinking that prices are going to fall another 10, 15, 20%, I don't know where that's going to come from. Could it happen? Absolutely. Hasn't happened, was forecast to happen, isn't likely to happen based upon the latest data. As a matter of fact, here is where the experts are forecasting home prices to go over the next several years. So this right here is December to December, and this is from the Home Price Expectation Survey. And what that is it's a survey of the 100 leading economists and experts in the real estate industry. It's their answers averaged together on where they think home prices are going to go. Now, as you can see, they recently revised 2023 up, right? I got a feeling they're going to revise 2024 up. But as you can see here, these are all green bars. They're all forecasting price appreciation over the next 4 years. If you add all these together, it comes up to about 14% price appreciation, which I can tell you they are expecting that and more here in Collin County, Denton County, here in the Frisco area. So again, it's hard to know exactly what the best thing for you to do is. Affordability is a challenge. I understand that. But there are unique opportunities in the market today, especially with new construction. I've put another card up here, another link to a video I did recently explaining why there is a unique opportunity in this marketplace right now for anyone that wants to take advantage of it. Now, as promised, I'm going to share with you, I'm not going to read the whole thing, don't worry, but I am going to share with you that Forbes article that talks specifically about the Dallas market. All right, so here's that article. It really just came out, and it says, will the Dallas housing market crash? Now, I'm not going to read through all of this. It's got a lot of data in it. I am going to put a link in the description below to this article so you can look at it in detail yourself if you so choose to. It talks a little bit about what's going on in Texas. It talks about the Dallas area. It looks at sales prices in Dallas Metroplex compared to the rest of Texas, and then it breaks it down by market and sales price and year-over-year changes of 20 areas around the Metroplex. Frisco is included in here, right here, and it talks about inventory, you name it. It's all in here. It's a very interesting article. But the part that I know everyone is most interested in, when we get all the way down here, the bottom line on a Dallas housing market crash. So on the question of whether the Dallas housing market will crash, the data seems to point to such an event being very unlikely. As with many housing markets across the US, the Dallas housing market has experienced moderation in housing market activity. We've seen that. Yet an outright crash doesn't appear to be reflected in the data. Goes on to say that the telltale signs of a bubble also cannot be found in the data. So again, that's not my opinion by any means. That's coming directly from Forbes, but it does corroborate the data that I'm seeing, the data that I'm pulling, and I've shared with you today. So hopefully you find this information useful. As I mentioned earlier, my goal is simply to make sure that you get the information that you need to make the decision that's best for you. In the description below, I also have a link to my calendar. If you've got specific questions or want to talk at any time about your specific situation or the market in general, then please feel free to book a call with me. I'd be more than happy to talk with you. And as I mentioned, what's holding you back? Let me know in those comments below. What are you most concerned with, and where do you think that the market is heading? So as always, if you have additional questions, please feel free to try and call or text 469-296-5230. Otherwise, I've got a couple of videos coming up on the screen in a moment for you that you may be interested in watching next. Otherwise, we will see you next time.